In India, a truly ancient legend that predates the Hindu religion tells of a large island of unparalleled beauty that long ago lay in the center of a vast Central Asian sea, just north of the modern-day Himalayas. A race of godlike people with strange powers lived isolated on the island, uncommunicating with the outside world, except through a number of deep tunnels which stretched out in all directions, each hundreds or thousands of miles long, burrowing underneath whole continents and even oceans. On this isolated island, society flourished at an extraordinary rate. Science and the arts developed peacefully, never threatened by wars or epidemics, remaining purposefully hidden to protect their wealth of knowledge from the calamities that habitually plagued their brothers and sisters in the outside world. But a tremendous force was soon to befall the earth, and even this utopia was doomed to destruction if they stayed their place. Perhaps a great flood or an invading force of epic proportions. The exact reason is not known. But the story tells that the people of the island escaped by moving their society into those tunnels and rebuilding their civilization entirely underground. No longer an island, but a subterranean kingdom, leaving no trace on the surface but the entrances to their tunnels, most caved in over thousands of years. For the purposes of our investigation, this lost empire will be known as Agartha. The hidden paths to Agartha that survive are still said to exist in the ancient ruined cities of India, such as Ellora, Elephanta, and the Ajanta caverns, as well as in other countries, such as in the recess of Afghanistan, in the Hindu Kush. This legend of the island is particularly strange because, if taken absolutely literally, obviously there is no ocean north of the Himalayas, but instead the Taklamakan and Gobi deserts. But if we took a trek into the arid, weather-bleached peaks of Everest, K2, or Kanchenjunga, you may be advised not to trip over the countless fish bones, coral reef remnants, and fossils of sea lilies littered across some of the tallest peaks. It's a lesser-known fact that the mighty Himalayas, often called the roof of the world, were once underwater, and that was the Tethys Sea, before the massive geological event known as the continental drift took place, and India collided into Eurasia, where it remains to this day. But what about those tunnels that supposedly stretch across the world? Why do parallel myths of gods or godlike people living in vast underground cities, protected from calamities above, appear in traditions and cultures across multiple continents, from Africa to America to Asia? Tracing its roots back to the dawn of civilizations, and perpetuated by the men who, through eyewitness testimony, have claimed to have visited the lost civilization themselves within the inner earth. I'm Mr. Mythos, and I welcome you to Truth or Lore. Be sure to subscribe if you love the mysteries of history like I do. Every sub is a massive support to the videos I make on my channel. The concept of Agartha is deceivingly simple: an inner earth kingdom linked to every continent of the world by means of an extensive network of tunnels. But our investigation is not an easy one. For such an expansive and archaic topic that is typically skewed with conspiracy theories, the truth of a genuine inner earth civilization that may still exist today remains in obscure documents, the riddles of Buddhist lamas, and the lost teachings of a so-called cult of Agartha, all of which we'll be exploring in this video. And of course, tunnel mythologies across the globe. But we may want to begin with a studious Frenchman by the name of Alexandre Saint-Yves, and the rather bizarre circumstances of how he came to be acquainted with the secret world, accidentally letting it loose into the minds of Westerners, where the land of Agartha continues to be speculated upon and even searched for to this day. Alexandre Saint-Yves today is an enigmatic, almost unknown figure, but in the 19th century, the writings and teachings of this respected philosopher and occultist paved the foundation of French esoteric tradition, and this was largely due to his unquenchable curiosity for the mysteries of the world. Having gained much wisdom learning ancient Hebrew for his breakthrough work, Mission of the Jews, Saint-Yves was keen to deepen his understanding of the world and unlock more secrets through the even older language of Sanskrit, ancestor to all modern Indo-European tongues. And in 1885, he hired a teacher. Through a mutual connection, Saint-Yves was introduced to a man who called himself Prince Harji Sharif, an impressive scholar who supposedly left India after the Indian Rebellion of 1857 and set up shop in France as a bird seller and professor of the Oriental languages. His true origins, however, are hazy. It is long thought that Harji was actually Afghan and perhaps went under a pseudonym. Nonetheless, the surviving manuscripts of their lessons, preserved in the library of Sorbonne and written in exquisite script, prove that he was highly learned in what he taught, and likely nobility. The mystery of Agartha was actually planted in the title of their very first lesson together. First lesson in the Sanskrit language to Monsieur Marquis Saint-Yves Delvedre Paris, this 8th of June, 1885, by teacher and professor H.S. Bhagwandas of the Great Agarthian School. Saint-Yves intently asked his teacher, what was this Great Agarthian School, only to receive vague answers and continue on with the lesson. But the French occultist didn't give up easily. Studying with Harji 3 times a week, several notebooks were compiled, including excerpts from their informal conversations together, written out in Sanskrit, which contain phrases such as elements for the Agarthian rite alone for the use of initiates, the holy land of Agartha, and how was he able to leave Agartha. Over the course of their lessons, it becomes clear that Harji did talk at length with Saint-Yves about some land of Agartha and its mysterious protector, the Master of the Universe, who was in many ways a spiritually and physically superior being to any other in the world. Whatever Agartha truly was, this realm was supposed to preserve great wisdom and ancient knowledge, most notably to Saint-Yves, a secret 22-letter script known as Vatanian, which Harji told him went all the way back to the origins of civilization, precisely 51,900 BC, the confusion of the languages, and since then had been kept solely within the protected libraries of Agartha. If you watched my last video on Enochian, you'll know that Vatanian is another example of a proposed primordial or Adamic language. Harji could write this strange language as fluently and beautifully as his French and Sanskrit. For Saint-Yves, who had long obsessed over the secret and sacred roots of language, Harji wrote his student's name in Vatanian characters, with a side note. Here, according to your ardent desire, but really, you are not yet sufficiently prepared for Vatanian. slowly and surely. Very likely without his teacher's knowledge, Saint-Yves had amassed extremely detailed notes from his time with Harji Sharif and compiled them into a book entitled Mission of India in Europe, Mission of Europe in Asia. This work is, without a doubt, the first thorough description of Agartha in the Western world. Pay close attention, as these details will be important when we cross-compare with other sources. According to Saint-Yves, the hidden land of Agartha lies deep below the surface of the earth, somewhere in the mountain ranges of the Himalayas. This enormous underground complex of cities and a population of millions is ruled by a sovereign pontiff known as the Brahmatma and his two colleagues, the Mahatma and the Mahanga, upholding the highest of values in their authority. As protectors of knowledge, the entire collected wisdom of the ages is enshrined in its massive stone libraries, engraved in pillars in Battanian script. He goes on to reveal that the Agarthian civilization was once above ground, but driven under and concealed from the rest of the world at the onset of the Kali Yuga, the present Dark Age cycle of Hindu chronology, around the year 3200 BC. Agartha is prophesied to reveal itself to the surface once again, but only once the world above attains spiritual balance in her governance. Long has this hidden civilization enjoyed advancement of technology at a greater pace than our own, including gaslighting, railways, and air travel. And when describing one of their most prominent technologies, Saint-Yves accurately predicts fiber optics over 1 century before their invention. He describes, quote, electrical pathways, not made of steel, but of flexible glass, which do not imprudently deplete the carbon reserves of the planet, nor saddle it with an iron framework no less conducive to the spread of some cosmic plagues. Though Agarthian society flourishes largely in complete isolation, they keep careful record of the discoveries of modern man, even from the remotest regions, by means of a vast network of tunnels that span across Earth. But despite this, Agarthians have evolved separately from the rest of the world for so many years that they developed 2 tongues with which they are able to speak 2 languages simultaneously, a detail Saint-Yves was particularly fond of sharing. As an unwavering literalist, Mission of India was not intended to be read as allegory or fantasy. The French occultist was dead serious in every word he wrote, and presented Agartha as a factual, geographic place that can be found if one knows where to look. The lessons went on 3 times a week, and Harji would sign each of Saint-Yves' notebook pages with his monogram as a mark of approval. But as the pages and lessons continued, his signature grew sketchier and more abstract, with less and less care put into it, until his monogram was no more than a small cross. Finally, his mark disappeared for good, and it was at this point that their Sanskrit lessons ended, for reasons unknown. At this same time, hundreds of copies of Saint-Yves' Mission of India had been printed and were ready to be distributed across France, when he suddenly withdrew the book and ordered every copy to be burned. The only remaining was a manuscript in his personal possession, and this probably would have been lost to oblivion, but Saint-Yves, who had no children of his own, left his belongings to his stepchildren, who then passed it on to the famous French occultist, Dr. Jean Oncols, better known as Papus. When Papus published Mission of India in 1910, He omitted several parts of the manuscript, which remain lost to this day. There have been various theories put forward as to why Saint-Yves ordered the destruction of his precious work. Some sources state that he acted under the orders of the Great Agarthian School, as the wisdom revealed would not be understood, and publishing it would be like casting pearls before swine. While others go as far as to say that he was threatened with the dagger of the initiates if he were to reveal the secrets of Agartha. Regardless of the true reason, the public revelation of Agartha was ultimately withheld during Saint-Yves' life, but there is evidence that he remained true to his belief in the lost civilization. For example, he mentions Agartha and his three rulers by name in his epic poem from 1890, Joan of Arc Victorious. In his conversations with psychical researcher Alfred Ernie in 1896, he stated many details of Agartha just as they appear in his book, and again insisted on their existence. Finally, he mentions Agartha in veiled terms in the major work of his final years, the Archaeometer.